Meeting of Council of the Municipality of Jasper to order for December 19th. Barring any unexpected circumstances, this should be our last meeting of the year.
You're looking at me for it.
Councillors, you have before you today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to the agenda? Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wonder if we might be able to move an item on the agenda. Item 6.4, the 2024 to 2026 operating and 2024 to 2028 capital budgets item to be item number 6.1 as opposed to 6.4.
Thank you for that, Councillor Melnick. I'll take that as a motion to amend the order of the agenda in that fashion. Are there any other proposed changes? Councillor Demota.
Yeah, I move that we move the director's report from finance and administration to the next available council meeting, whether it be committee of the whole or and I appreciate the work that's gone behind it, but we're doing a lot of work on finance and administration, and I think we're pretty caught up on what's going on, and I think just for the weight of the decisions we have to make today and the time, I think it would be better served if we kind of lighten the load a little bit today on things that we don't have to really go over. No offense. So I move that we defer item 6.1 to the next available council meeting.
All right, thank you for that. Rather than try and combine those two separate motions, I will call a question on that motion to amend today's agenda by deferring item 6.1 Director's Report, Finance and Administration, to the first regularly scheduled regular council meeting in 2024. Is there any debate on the motion? I will call the question. All those in favor? One opposed? That is carried. I will call the question with respect to Councillor Melnick's motion, and that is to reorder what appears as agenda item 6.4 to become agenda item 6.1 on today's agenda. Is there any debate on that? I'll call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Could I have a motion then to approve the agenda for today's meeting as amended? I'm sorry, Councillor Demota, did you have further changes to make first?
That's fine. My question is agenda item 6.5. Does that have to come before any decisions get made on actually improving the operating or capital budget?
Director Reed or Mr. Gibbon is on our screen. Go ahead, Mr. Gibbon.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. No, it's not required to come before. You'll see in the report that this is required reporting on behalf of administration to council. That is essentially reporting a decision that I have made. So the decision is done, but we're required under our procurement policy to report it to council. And that's what this report is. I can go into further detail, but it doesn't have an impact on the 2024 budget. So doing the budget first, then dealing with this item is completely fine.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And if you need some throat lozenges, I can have somebody bring those over for you.
All right, I'll ask again. So our councillor prepared to make a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting as amended. Councillor Waxer, thank you for that. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We have 4 sets of minutes for approval today, beginning with the Legislative Committee meeting minutes of December 5th, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? If not, may I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of the December 5th, 2023 Legislative Committee meeting as presented? Deputy Mayor Hall, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That's carried. We also have for approval the minutes of the regular meeting of December 5th, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Councillor Demoto.
I have a procedural question here. I feel that with a motion that I made, that we could potentially be offside with a decision. And I don't know if speaking to that would take place here or once we move on, because I don't want to accept minutes if there was something that was inaccurate in our procedure. And I'm only referencing that. If you give me a few seconds to explain, I made a motion for number 576 to apply $147,000 to the of the over levy to the mill rate for 2024. And I believe through our procedure bylaw on transfers to reserve that half of that has to go into our general reserve and 40% of that shall go into the rate stabilization reserve. So I just want to make sure that we're on side before we move forward and approve that.
Thank you for that. I will invite Mr. Given, but I would say first that if the motion was out of order, the question really is it properly reflected in the minutes? Is that what we did? So I think right now we're looking at errors in the minutes, but if the minutes properly record what we did, that's a different question than whether we followed our policy.
Right, that was my first part of the question. Thank you.
Mr. Given?
Thanks, Your Worship. And I would say on the second part of the question with respect to, what council may or may not do, the policies are council policies, and you may choose to direct funds, in ways other than the policies. Administration is bound to operate the municipality in accordance with council policies, but council can choose to vary how it does things as you see fit.
Thank you for that, Mr. Given. Any other comment from any councillors regarding the point made by Councillor Demoto? I think then that it is not a suggestion that the minutes are inaccurate, whether the motion complied with policy or not. So is there a councillor prepared to make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 5th, 2023 regular council meeting as presented? Councillor Demoto, thank you for that. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We have before us for approval also the Committee of the Whole minute meetings of December 12, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? If not, I would look for a motion from a councillor to approve the minutes. Deputy Mayor Hall, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That's carried. And finally, we have the minutes of the special council meeting of December 12th, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? And if not, I would look for a motion. Councillor Kelleher-MP, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 4, correspondence, and we have on our agenda a letter from the Jasper Hotel Association. There is a recommended motion from administration. Mr. Given, do you wish to speak to the matter at all?
No, Your Worship, not particularly. Administration certainly is happy to take council direction on this request from an outside organization. The Emergency Management Agency is the body of administration that operates the municipality's emergency management planning. Certainly, the agency can invite guests to participate. And we would want to have a conversation with the Hotel and Lodging Association to understand the nature of their request, and then certainly we can report back to council. I would make the distinction that the agency is different than the Emergency Advisory Committee, which is made up of members of council, and is different than an Emergency Operations Center or an ECC, Emergency Coordinating Center. And so we would just want to make sure that they understand what they're asking for, that we understand what they're asking for, and then we would report back to council in due course.
Thank you for that, Mr. Given. Any discussion from councillors? Councillor DeMona?
I understand why the request is there, and I think it's worth a conversation for the exact things that Mr. Given has alluded to. So I'd like to move the council refer the request to the Emergency Management Agency and request a status update at a future committee of the whole.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor DeMona. Is there any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. There are no delegations scheduled today, so that disposes of agenda item 5, and we turn to agenda item 6, new business, and we have reordered things so that it was 6.4 on your agenda, the 2024-2026 operating and 2024-2028 capital budgets are our first item of new business. The operating and capital budgets, as have been amended from time to time, are here before us. I sense that there is some appetite for further motions or suggestions for changes. It's a bit of a difficult process that we've all been through over a number of weeks. I might suggest, and I would just throw this out for council consideration, but as we proceed, we all received an email earlier today from a councillor suggesting a course of action. We are bound by our procedural bylaw, except to the extent that we can choose unanimously, if we wish, to suspend parts of it. There is a provision in our procedural bylaw for reconsideration of motions. It is limited to reconsideration at the same meeting. I think that if we wish to unanimously agree, we could suspend that and say that every meeting that we have devoted to the 2024-2026 operating and 2024-2028 capital budgets can be considered as the same meeting, and so we're still in it. So if we wanted to reconsider, there is a route to that. Otherwise, we will, I think, get into questions of motions to possibly to rescind. So I just suggest that I don't have motions to make, but if others do and they're interested in a procedural way to resolve what otherwise could be a bit of a debatable issue, I make that suggestion. Councillor DeMona?
So if I may, I think that, going through the budget process, there are things that, you know, you make decisions on early and you're looking at the whole grandeur of the structure, and some of it can be a little bit overwhelming. But as you go through it and, you know, we find some successful changes, you know, that affect the budget or the tax levy positively, we might find some room for something we said no to earlier on, to reconsider that. And that's why I was just kind of reaching out to council to say, hey, you know, like now that we've made some moves over here, you know, we might find some operating financing or funding to go somewhere else. And I think just having an open conversation that way, regardless of if it was your motion or not, just to have that reconsidered, because even something that I've moved forward, I think would be worthwhile bringing back to the table if I said no or said yes to. So, but do you need a motion for reconsideration or just a friendly nod from council?
No, definitely we need a motion if we are going to suspend our rules. And I present it as an option, recognizing two things. It has to be unanimous. And you know, I am not inclined to thwart any councillor who wants to express further thoughts on items before it, but at some point, council has to make decisions, and we have made a number of decisions to get us to this point. We can't continually go back. It is an option. Otherwise, I think we have to look at the particulars of section 11.14 of schedule 2 to our procedural bylaw, which deals with motions to rescind and motions to amend, and just suggesting that that is problematic, as is 11.15, which deals with emergent situations. And I don't know how that might pan out. But there we are. Decisions need to be made at some point. But if we want to give ourselves some latitude, we can do that unanimously. But it does require a motion and a unanimous vote.
I mean, could a motion as simple as to move council reconsider any motions made for the 2024 budget, annual operating budget, operating and capital. I can revert that.
So the motion is to suspend those provisions of the existing procedural bylaw so as to allow reconsideration of any motion made with respect to the operator or capital budgets in the last 2 months. I mean, I threw that in, but I can't remember the date that we started.
I think instead of saying last 2 months, the 2024 budget.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. My question is for Director Melnichuk. Can you, maybe for clarity for people listening and for myself, where we landed with the tax envelope after our changes last week?
Your worship, through to Councillor Hall. So at the end of the meetings, we came down to the taxes being $1,083,033 more than the prior year. And did you want us the utilities as well?
No. Okay, yeah, not yet.
Someone is sharing the screen, and might I assume that's Mr. Gibbons?
Yes, your worship, I thought that might be helpful so the council can see the decisions that they made and sort of where we ended up. I'll put that back up and can just orient you to it a little bit. So on November 22nd, that was the end of the first 2 days of council and committee of the whole. After the adjustments made by council, we showed a net tax increase of 1.5, just over $1.5 million. And then we headed into December 5th, where council made a number of reductions. And you can see those listed in the gray here. And then December 12th, the continuation of the December 5th meeting, some additional reductions. All of those led to the number that Director Melanchuk highlighted, the $1,083,134 net tax increase, which is approximately equivalent to 10.61%. There were two other non-net tax impacting decisions. The application of the prior year over levy of $147,000. That's roughly equivalent to 1.44% of the net tax. And then, of course, there's the bulk water fee increase of $100,000, which has no impact because it's all in the utility funded budget.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbon.
That's. Yeah.
We are back to the Councillor Demota. You did have a motion. I mean, you presented it already.
Yes.
Right, and that is to suspend the rules to allow reconsideration, if we wish. Any other debates on that motion, Councillor Demota? Go ahead.
Well, I would just like, I sent a photograph to Mr. Given earlier today to ask if we can have that up on the screen. And I just wanted to have that part of this discussion. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Mr. Given, are you able to share that? Okay. So part of the reason I'm bringing this up today is, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be.
I apologize for interrupting, Councillor Demota.
Yes, sir.
That's a recognizable piece of art that's associated with a particular entity.
This has nothing to do with uplift.
Okay. I need to be sensitive if
Yes,
I need
sir.
to declare the conflict.
No, this is more of an operational discussion. If you can still, if you need to remove yourself, that's fine.
Oh, I simply have no idea where you're going.
Okay. All right. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because at one point in August, or at the end of July, I was walking by here and I saw 30 youth outside doing activities in an area that, you know, we made decisions on to establish in our community for activity. And regardless of the backdrop, there were some decisions made a few weeks ago and last week for some budget items that I think if reconsidered, we could put back towards funding some of our municipal services. And I'm saying that because we have a lot of external asks that we're making decisions on and still haven't completely decided on. And I think with those considerations and providing services within our municipality, I think when we look at our priority list, we look at serving our community first and the priorities for serving the community, and then those external asks should come in later and with some other consideration for debate on those items. I think we might be able to, we have an opportunity at least to look at funding some other priorities within the municipality that serve the community. And what I really liked about this is that these were all kids from the community that were taking advantage of an opportunity made to be outside and be active. And since I moved here 30 plus years ago, all I hear, I shouldn't say all I hear, but I hear a lot that there isn't enough for young people to do in this community, and we're getting better at it. And I feel that, you know, instead of looking at the budget and trying to get to a single digit number increase, is to actually consider some of the ramifications and the opportunities that kids in the community can have. And I want to go in that direction a little bit today because it does satisfy some of our strategic priorities and some important ones. So that's why I'm bringing that, and I'll close on that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Moda. Any other debates on the question of reconsideration? Deputy Mayor Hall.
No debate, I just need clarity on the motion, so we have to all vote in favor, but we don't necessarily have to just to move this forward, but then when things come up, we don't necessarily have to vote. This isn't doing anything except for just allowing this to happen, is that correct?
It is a procedural issue, and right now, to reconsider a motion that has been approved, it has to be at the same meeting. We do allow reconsideration at a meeting, but if it's beyond that meeting, then there has to be a motion to rescind or amend, which requires some other considerations. But if we want to suspend our current rule, it has to be unanimous. It doesn't mean anything about how you might vote on any motion to actually reconsider any element of the budget. It's just whether we're prepared to entertain that at all. Any other debate? Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
So it's not that I don't support having that conversation, but it just feels like we're finding a loophole to recircle back and rehash out stuff that was already spoken on, as well as we're suggesting that these are all one meeting, which they aren't. I unfortunately, I would love to entertain these conversations, but I don't believe that that's the proper channel to the way to navigate it, I guess.
If I may clarify, sir. I think what the mayor is trying to do is save us time down the road. If a councillor wants to rescind a decision, so then we'll go into another debate. And then we'll have to debate whether to rescind or not, and it can still go forward if the majority of council votes in favor of the rescinding. So he's just, I believe, trying to alleviate some pressure off of other things that we want to reconsider. And I'm not trying to throw any wrench in the works. I'm just asking the rest of council to bear with me in a couple of things that I found within the budget to reconsider, that's all. And if you don't want to, that's fine. That's democratic process.
Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarity, Councillor Demota just said a majority of council. On this vote, it needs to be a unanimous vote, not a majority. So this is a vote where it's going to need to be unanimous. I think Councillor Demota maybe misspoke, or unless I misunderstood what you're referring to.
You did, sir, if I may. This has to be a majority vote. What we're trying to avoid, I think what I'm trying to, or sorry, this has to be unanimous vote. What I'm trying to avoid is going to a rescind position where then it has to be a majority. It can still, things can still be reconsidered. If someone moves to rescind a motion, and those motions can only be passed if there's a majority council. This one has to be unanimous. I am clear on that. I'm just asking for some support. And I just came up with some ideas, but if you guys don't want to hear them, I'm just going to rescind a couple of things that we did anyway. So it's up to you.
I'm going to move to rescind a couple of items. So.
Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was strictly wanting to make sure I heard what you said correctly.
Yeah.
And so that all of council is clear that to go further, this is a majority, this has to be unanimous vote. Because I think what you said in what I heard was that it could be a majority vote. And if that was my mistake, I apologize. And we can move forward.
Any further debate? I will speak to the motion because I am primarily responsible, I suppose, for it. I just want council to understand that council's process is in the hands of council. And so we have a set of rules. We want to deviate from those rules. We can do so if we are in unanimous agreement. Otherwise, we have other rules dealing with motions to rescind, but they have different parameters and can't say how that's going to work out. My only hope is that council appreciates what its options are and can decide accordingly. So the motion is to suspend the rules to allow reconsideration at this meeting. Councillor Demota, it's your motion. I see no other hands. I'll let you close.
I did already.
Okay. I will call the question. All those in favor? That was unanimous. All right. We are back where we were. We can reconsider matters. We have from administration received a picture of where we are at. If a councillor is not prepared to make a motion to approve the 2024-2026 operating budget as presented and the 2024-2028 capital budget as presented, then I would invite motions either to reconsider motions where we have previously amended the budget, or a motion to further amend either the operating or the capital budget by increasing or reducing or adding or eliminating particular items with particular amounts so that staff has clarity. So those motions would have been in order in any event. It would just be the matters for reconsidering in all previous motions that would be subject to the unanimous agreement that we just had. So it's open. If there are motions to be made, I invite them. Councillor Demota.
Well, first of all, with your help and maybe CAO given, just on the motion that I referred to in the meeting minutes of December 5th, number 576. I did make a motion to use some of our, a portion of our surplus to put towards the mill rate in 2024. And the reason I'm asking to reconsider that, first of all, I wanted to know if we were actually on side with policy. And then if not, to reconsider because within our policy, we did set up a couple of rules for ourselves. And I think that there's a better opportunity right now to use that funding for the 2024 budget. And I'll explain why after we get through the first part.
I'm not entirely clear. You want to reconsider the motion, you gave the number, but do you want to amend it in some way or just get rid of it?
That's a good question. Okay. Well, I would like to amend the motion then to reflect. I would like the motion to reflect our policy. So that $147,000 that comes from surplus to go to reserve, so I just have to reword that. Do you understand where I'm going?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just procedurally, I think I'm asking for some guidance here because I don't know if we're on side. So if we weren't on side to do it, so then does it need to be removed
And I thought,
or amended? Sorry.
and Mr. Given addressed it earlier, and we do have a policy, but we can be offside our own policy.
Okay,
And if we are, we are. If you want to bring us back on side and council wishes to do that, that can happen.
all right.
Sorry, Councillor Keller-Rampi, I'll just put you in the queue because Councillor Mellon wanted to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I am wanting to just address the specific item that we're speaking of. And that is an over levy from previous years, and it's being referred to as a surplus. And we have a policy on an annual surplus. But we don't have a policy, I believe, on how we apply an accumulation of over levies and under levies, because these go up and down every year. And this has been an accumulation over 5 years, from what I understand. And this particular accumulation of over levies and under levies is not specifically referred to in our annual surplus policy. So where I don't think we're offside, and it just is a matter of if an over levy is after the course of a year, for argument's sake, $20,000, we may not do anything with it. But over the course of 5 years or previous years, this is now accumulated to $147,000. And we have an opportunity, as was brought up, to do it. So I just want to make sure that I have this right, that this over levy is not covered by the policy on surpluses.
Thank you for that, Councillor Melnick and Director Melanchuk. You're nodding, but nobody except those in this room can see that.
Yes, Your Worship, I completely agree with Councillor Melnick's statement. It is not considered part and parcel of the annual surplus. It is categorized as an over levy. In the Municipal Government Act, there are requirements, say, for the Alberta School Foundation over levies that have to be applied back to the Alberta school taxes. We don't necessarily have that policy as indicated by Councillor Melnick. However, in the past, it has been written into the tax rate bylaw that the over levy has been applied back to the municipal taxes for that year. So we have seen that occur in the past, and that is has been something that the municipality has done on multiple occasions.
Thank you for that, Councillor Keller-Rampi. I'm sorry.
My question was the same as.
Thank you for that, Councillor DeMota.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to do things in full circle here, so it's clear in everybody's understanding. So I would appreciate if council would try to find some nuance in case I use a wrong word, and don't get hung up on that semantic or those semantics, please. So what I would like to do with this over levy is use it in the spirit of what our surpluses were designed for. So as opposed to putting the $147,000 towards the mill rate for 2024, I would like them to go into the 50% into our general operating, which our policy says we should do with a surplus, 40% into the stabilization reserve, which is reflected in our policy, and then 10% towards housing reserve. So what I'd like to do in this budget is to take an amount similar to that 40% right now, out of the stabilization reserve to help fund a position in our sorry, to fund the program coordinator that was taken out of the budget on December 5th, which I think is a very important position for the municipality. Once we get up and running again, with the arena opening up and bringing camps into the community. Right now, it's run off of 3 people's desks, as Director Reed had prescribed earlier. And I think once we start getting going again, instead of starting from scratch and having 3 people scrambling, trying to find business outside of the community. Initially, that position was projected at $76,000. There was some projected revenue and savings that if we did have that position, we could earn an extra revenue of $6,000. And if we brought that position in, it would take away $10,000 worth of contracting. So in saving that $16,000, that position could technically be funded at $60,000, which is pretty close to 40% of that 147 going in. So I think without affecting the actual budget number that we have today, that we could bring somebody in. And I would like to, through you, your worship, if I can ask, even though that's not the particular motion right now on the floor, just to get some more information on how beneficial that position would be to attract some revenue and youth participation and other programs and events in the community.
And you're asking that of Director Reed?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Your worship, through to Councillor Demota. I just want to clarify, I think you're speaking of the position we call the community programmer. Program support is a different, smaller amount, but the community programmer position we had proposed as a 2-year term. Your numbers are correct. We do have a $10,000 contract item that we would not need to take advantage of. That role would be in this position, as well as we are expecting conservatively to be able to bring in $6,000 of new revenue. The position would certainly be the main point of contact for, to speak to the photo you showed, that individual that runs those tennis camps. This position would be that main point of contact for that person, which would create a much more collaborative environment. So the ability to increase tennis camps by supporting that individual or assisting them in creating different opportunities, but also things that we have not had in the community for a while, like a hockey camp is a good example. This position that would be part of their role would be to go out and create opportunities for not just revenue, but service increases. Is that what you were asking for, Councillor Demota?
Yes, sir. And, just coming from or not even strictly, but it's for community betterment. But from a business standpoint of view, we've had an arena that's been closed down. There might be some negative publicity that's been attached to that, and people might have booked camps elsewhere. And I think that we need to actively go out and source some other revenue. So if 3 people are trying to do it off the corner of their desk, as opposed to trying to facilitate that through a single person and going out there and attracting more revenue through getting more camps and other programs within the community. I think the amount of money spent towards that position will benefit the community. It'll help people get into our arena that we just renovated, our activity center, our pool and fitness center. And I think those are important things. And if that work is spread out, like you said, we haven't been able to attract camps. I think those things are really important to the community, and I'm asking council to reconsider that decision, because for me, I'm usually the person that's on the conservative side when it comes down to considering new positions in the budget. And I think this one might be better served than anything that came towards us.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. Can I get some, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Waxer.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Through you to Director Reed, am I correct that the number was low for this year because it was only a partial projected at a partial year, but will be a significantly higher number in year 2?
Your worship, through to Councillor Waxer. Not significantly more, I believe. I can double check. This catches us a bit off guard over here. The position, I believe we were at 11 months with that number, so it's not a dramatic change for the second year.
Councillor Demota.
Oh, thank you. I didn't mean to throw administration off, and I was just going to ask if we can get, if it's possible, to if we put $60,000 towards that, if they could make that work for this year, and then assuming more revenue comes in, that'll help stabilize that position. However, while Mr. Reed is looking for some more information, I'm just looking at the decision that was actually made. It's the reason I use program coordinator position is because that's how it's worded in the budget. And if that wasn't the position that was eliminated from the budget, then we don't have to have a debate on that reconsideration either. So when I use that word, Director Reed said that the name of the position was something else. So I want to make sure that I'm speaking to the right thing.
Your worship, through to Councillor Demota, you are speaking about the right thing. Just to clarify, you said program support the first time. And so program support is a different ask in this budget request. So program coordinator, community programmer is the one full-time position that council has already voted to remove from the budget request this year. So you are speaking about the right thing. We're all talking about the right thing.
Okay.
I just needed to make that clarity because a different ask is called program support. And perhaps next year I'll do a better job of delineating those names.
Actually, no, you did do the right thing. It was us that didn't do the right thing. So the position title is Community Recreation and Cultural Programmer, correct? Okay, so the motion that I look at here that was eliminated from the 2024 budget says Program Coordinator position. Is that the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. Semantics, I just wanted to be clear. So, again, right now, I just want to ask, we are going to be challenged to attract camps and potential hockey tournaments, other programming in the community without this position. Through you, your worship, to Director Reed.
Your worship, through to Councillor Demota and all of council, we would be challenged to increase service. We will be able to do what we've been doing before. I can give you a really concrete example. Volunteer Week in this community has in the past, when a position similar to this was part of our portfolio. Volunteer Week was a volunteer week. There were many activities coordinated through this position. Volunteer Week this past year was volunteer afternoon. We did one event and it was an afternoon tea. It was beautiful. It was wonderful, but that's an example, a concrete example of what would change if we had the capacity. And so that same capacity improvement would apply to attracting camps, would apply to attracting other events to our community. Yes.
All right. And if I may finish on that, if, for an example, using the metrics of the $6,000 in savings and the $10,000 of saving in a contractor, could you operate that position for 2024 at the expense of $60,000?
Your worship, through to Councillor Demota. It will still show up as a $76,000 expense. There will be associated revenue that will offset that, and there will be a contractor line that goes to zero, and that money would apply to it. So I think if you're saying in general, is this position going to cost $60,000 in 2024? That is correct.
Councillor Wilson and then Deputy Mayor Hall.
60,000 this year, 76 next year. It doesn't matter, where the money comes from. What we're getting out of it is like, maybe a reserve number of 6,000 or 12,000. I don't think the spend is worth the what we're going to get out of it, and I'm not really in support of it.
Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I just want to speak to hockey tournaments specifically. Municipality doesn't really have much to do with bringing teams in. That's usually part of that's what the teams do. I'm correct on that. Like, municipality doesn't organize the U11 tournament. That would be the U11 managers. And if I remember correctly, regarding camps, did we not put those on hold because we didn't want to house the campers? Is that correct? So my other question would be, where are we, the municipality, in regards to partnering with the Grand Ole Head Public School Division? Maybe we could house them in the gyms, or I know that was on a bit of a pause during COVID. I wonder if there's been any movement on that.
Your worship, through to Deputy Mayor Hall. You're correct about local hockey tournaments are organized by the minor sports age groups. External tournaments are the ones that have nothing to do with our local minor sports or local athletes or competitors. Those are organized through our arena manager right now. So hockey tournaments themselves are not really in this discussion. Larger events than a hockey tournament, or different events. For example, in the past, the Oilers rookie camp has come to town. Do I believe that our new facility would be attractive? I do. Do I believe there's an opportunity to attract something like that again? Possibly, annually, biannually, I don't know. But that's an example of something that is very difficult to make a long-term plan off the corner of anybody's desk. So right now, there's nobody assigned to making that happen. And this position would be the main liaison for something like that. But hockey tournaments, we should take out of this discussion. We're still open for hockey tournaments, and we will be as the days go on. Camps, external camps coming to town. Again, this would be one of the duties of this person.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Hall.
And just following up on the question regarding the partnership between the school board and the municipality, because I do see a benefit to bringing camps to Jasper. The volleyball camp that my daughter attended for 4 years in a row, and the hockey camps happen all summer long. It was the housing. We weren't in the business of housing campers. But I wonder, because I think of Alberta Winter Games or Summer Games, and they all line up in a gymnasium. Like, would that be something that we could do? I just want to know where that partnership, or where we're at with that.
Your worship, through to Deputy Mayor Hall, Council, we are in the process of negotiations with the Grand Yellowhead. The provincial government has extended the deadline for having what's called the joint use agreement in place. And we have submitted our joint use agreement request to Grand Yellowhead, and we are hopeful to hear back from them ASAP. But it is an ongoing discussion, and it is a goal that we do have. Yeah.
Councillor Demoda, might I just take a moment to say where I think we're at, and then your motion, I think, is in three parts. Firstly, to reconsider and amend motion 576 to allocate the $147,000 over levy consistent with council's policy regarding allocation of surplus funds. Secondly, to reconsider a motion to remove the community programmer position as identified in motion number 578. And then thirdly, to use a portion of the reallocated over levy to fund that community coordinator position. So those three things are what you're after.
Almost. I think the second part, if I was going to make those motions to reconsider the removal of that position and to fund the and to fund the community recreation and cultural programmer from the stabilization reserve for this year. And that doesn't guarantee that it's going to be there for next year. But I want to use the money right now to get that position in there and fund it, so it doesn't affect the overall tax levy.
Thank you. Councillor Keller-Hrampe.
Thank you, Mayor Arlen. To you, to Ms. Melanchuk. I'm a little confused. The levies has got the extra taxes that we collected. I was always of the understanding that that actually had to go back to reduce the tax levy the next year or the year after. Am I correct, or did I misunderstand that?
Your worship, through to Councillor Keller-Hrampe. So it is done and has been done in the past where the over levies have been applied to the municipal taxation, because what has occurred is that either there's the over levy can be collected from supplementary, or it can be collected from an anticipated, there's an appeal on assessment, and we prepare ourselves for that possibility. So in the past, it has been applied that way. We've seen it through the tax rate bylaw, where it actually reduces the amount that you're taxing. What I was saying is that in the Municipal Government Act, it is mandated that the Alberta school tax, anything that we would collect, say, over levy for the supplementary, or the same with assessments that appeals that didn't work out, that has to be used back towards the Alberta school taxes. So that would definitely reduce those amounts in the next year. We've done it in the past. It's not written in policy. It's not written in the Municipal Government Act on the municipal side of things.
So then council could make a motion to put it to reserves or to this current budget. We wouldn't be offside with policy.
I believe, like what Mr. Given had said before, that it is council can choose to do what you would like to do with the funds that we have. So it is council's decision.
Thank you for that.
All right, we had agreed to suspend one rule, but not all rules, and so I think debate has been thoroughly canvassed. Are we clear on the question? If I call the question, you're not clear.
I don't think I specifically made the motion. So anyway, I believe for the first part, were you gonna try to do it all in one?
It's your motion. You make it any way you want. I've heard 3 consecutive provisions, but your motion.
Okay. So first of all, I think we have to get through one to get to the other one. So I am just going to move that to amend motion number 576/23 that administration apply the minimum of $147,000 in accumulated municipal overlevy from prior years to reserve, reflecting the policy requirements of policy B112.
Thank you for that clarity. Everybody understand the motion that has already been debated? Go ahead, Councillor Demota.
Well, so that would mean that 50% of that over levy would go into general reserves, 40% into the stabilization reserve, and then 10% going into the housing reserve.
Councillor Keller-Rampe.
I apologize, but I'm a little confused. So if we weren't allowed to do this till when we came to the mill rate, how can we move it into reserves now? I'm a little confused there because I did miss some of that conversation because I was on the road. But my understanding was that this 147,000 wouldn't come into play till we came to set the tax mill rate. So how, as a council, we couldn't do that 2 weeks ago, can we do it today? You know, I mean, if we couldn't move it into a reserve then, and the option wasn't given then, how are we allowed to do it today?
I think that we could have done it then, had that been our decision. It simply wasn't, but I think we're still free to do it if we wanted to do it. Councillor Demota?
I think what we were restricted in doing was applying it to the 2024 tax levy at this moment. That's what the confusion was. Yeah.
All right, are you ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. Are there any other motions that councillors would like to make regarding either the operating or capital budgets? Councillor Keller-Rampe.
I would like to make motion to remove the transit portion of the capital budget for now. 262,600 to not be taken from reserves and not to take on the debt load of 726,000. My reasoning is we don't have a business plan. Yes, I do understand that we got 5 million in grants. I know we have to spend it by the end of 2025, but we're still only in 2023. I would like to see a business plan. I would like to see the costs of this project. I'm not against green energy, not against climate change. Just that a couple of months ago, the arena came in front of us. We had a Class A estimation of what it was going to cost. I could make a decision. I just can't make a decision with this. 50K a year to fleet reserve. And when I questioned this last week, I was told there was more grant money down the road. So we're convinced there's more grant money down the road. I'd like to see the transportation master plan delivered, and then for this to come back to make a decision. I just don't feel I have the information to support this today.
Thank you, Councillor Keller-Hrampe. And that's a motion with respect to the capital budget. Remove the transit item in whole from the 2024-2028 capital budget. Go ahead.
And I just want to add, like, we've gone in and we've started transportation this year with the transit system. This is our first time as a municipality doing this. We're not like Calgary, we're not like Edmonton, Montreal, Toronto. I think that we need to have a report given to see how this actually runs in our town. And I think the more data we have, the better decision. I'd like to see administration looking to see if we can get that grant to deliver 2027 finished, or if those reports are back, that then we move forward. But I don't think this is a very good idea to move forward right now.
Thank you for that, Councillor Keller-Hrampe. The motion, Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I just have a question. If we suspend this and we don't spend the money by the end of 2025, do we have to send it back to the federal government?
I think that's a question directed at Mr. Given. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, that would be if this was suspended out of the capital plan. We wouldn't have the potential to be able to meet the timelines under the grant and would result in us having to return the $5 million to the federal government.
Councillor Demota.
Yeah, I think I know I would support this motion because I'd like to see a better business plan. We don't know what revenues are going to be. We don't know what kind of cycle we're going to get into with replacement. I'm not concerned at this point right now with the decisions that we've made on the arena and the activity center project, fitness aquatic center project. With those overruns, it put us into a pretty in debt situation in a couple of years from now, and I'm not willing to risk, putting us even in a tighter position. We don't know if there's going to be any events that might cause a disruption in our operations in the next couple of years. And I think when you're running that tight, we made a commitment to the unexpected increase for funding towards a big project in our community that's going to take a long term to pay off. And this decision is coming at a crunch time where we're looking at some debt reserves. And I think that is too thin of a line to be dancing on. So I will support that regardless of what it is.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. I might ask Mr. Given, if the matter is removed from the capital budget, is there an impact on the operating budget? And if so, what is that impact?
Your Worship, you'll see in your council package the document that administration shared at last meeting. That document answers some of these questions that council had. There is no impact on the 2024 net tax or operating budget. These items are capital in nature, funded from reserves or from borrowing. As you can see in the document in 2025, removing these projects would be approximately $168,000 reduction in net tax, to reflect the fact that we wouldn't need to start repaying the debenture. And there would be an additional reduction of approximately 0.35% that would reflect the reduction in transfer to reserves for future equipment replacement. So the total impact would be approximately 1.4% change in the 2025 net tax. There would be zero impact in the 2024 net tax.
Thank you for that, Mr. Given. Councillor Wilson.
Hearing that, I'm in support of leaving it in. I think we should be moving forward with this type of program. Yet I'm skeptical about costs and all of that. But if it's not costing anything in the 2024 year, I don't think we're at risk at this point. And we could still see more. We'll see a business plan come about. We'll see. This will start to develop, but if we take it off, we won't see any of that develop. And I'm not in support of that.
Debate, Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I too do not support this motion. I think questions are, does this align with our priorities, and do we want to rent or own? And this is a very low risk way for us to own. I'm confident there'll be more grants down the line. I know that's at the FCM. We heard that from the government. Green energy is important. And again, do we want to rent or own our buses?
Councillor Demota.
I just asked for some clarity. Do we know whether it's more beneficial to rent or to buy? And through that, I'm just asking for clarity on that, because we're spending a lot of money on enhancing our transportation study, and I would feel, I believe the nature of this motion is to defer until we have more information. We don't have a business plan. We don't know what replacement costs are. We don't know complete longevity. We don't even know what vehicles we're buying at the time. So to me, it's too up in the air. There are too many unknowns, and I would rather defer, if I think that's the intent of the motion, until we have more concrete planning. So if that doesn't mean taking it off the books, it'd be whenever it is. But I apologize. I'm just not very clear on what we're trying to do here.
Thank you for that. Councillor Keller-Huntley.
I'm just saying that I can't support it now. I agree, defer it until we get the information, till the transportation master plan. That is the idea of having transportation master plan. What do we need? What is evidence do we have that to base this right now on? So in here we have 50,000 a year in the budget to replace these buses down the road. A regular bus is $1 million something. These could be 1.5. We get 3 of these, 50,000 a year over the next 10 years, not going to replace these buses. Is there grants there in 10 years to replace these buses? How much is this going to cost the community? We say right now, leave it in 2024 because we're getting a $5 million grant. Next year is 164,000 to pay back, plus 50,000 to go into reserves. That's over 200,000. So there we're at 2% starting. So right now in our current with transit, I think it's 649, I think it's 60,000 in gas. So we say it's 700,000 a year. We do have some income from the schools. We have some income from Parks Canada. But there is no plan to say that we're going to have this when we bring in our own transportation. So now are we saying to our community, we're nearly at our debt ceiling. So we're not going to impact the taxes for 2024. However, for 25 and beyond, you could have an 8 to 10% tax increase a year to support this. And again, we're basing this on what? We have no evidence. We got a plan for the arena and the activity center. It was 11.5 million. Then it came back, we needed another 6 million. We had all the stuff in front of us. I made a decision to support that. And as much as I get people tell me I made a wrong decision, I think I made a right decision. I had the information in front of me, said that these buildings are solid, and I can say for the next 30 years, yes, it may take us 25 to pay it off, but we will have a great arena, a great swimming pool. I can't go out and sell this tomorrow because I can't tell anybody what even the costs are going to be. And when I see 50,000 to replace the bus, I'm in the industry. It's a lot more money. And to base that there's more grants coming, what if we have a change of government? Maybe no grants.
Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Island. I have a question, maybe for CEO. Given we received and approved a transit strategy and action plan this year, what is the difference between that and a transportation master plan? My second question would be, would the transportation master plan be done in time to keep this grant by 2025?
Your worship, for Councillor Hall, so the transportation master plan is really focused on the municipality's road network, and it would consider how people are traveling around the municipality. You know, how many people walk versus how many people take bikes versus how many people use buses. But it really is focused more on the hard infrastructure in the municipality, road design, road network, and those sorts of things. A transit master plan would be focused on the service. And so when council is talking about a business plan, that would be in a transit master plan, which is in effect, you know, what the transit strategy and action plan presented by administration and adopted by council this year really filled that. It did give that multi-year forecast of expense, revenue, routes, as well as an action plan for changes to the system and implementation of changes over time. So, you know, I think of the documents, the transit strategy and action plan that council has already seen and adopted is the thing that would take the place of a transit master plan. A transportation master plan is more focused on the roads and the sidewalks. And the transportation master plan update is something that would likely take the majority of 2024 to complete.
Any further debate? Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to speak for the motion as well. I think that we have an opportunity here to revisit this in future years. We are just starting our transportation service. It was based on a pilot project, and then a transportation report was made. And we don't know what 5 years down the road our subsidy to transportation will be. The argument will be that we'll use money from our parking, but the additional money that was being generated from parking, I think was meant for general use within the community. We've almost now earmarked whatever revenues we receive from parking to support a public transportation system. And once we do this, we'll be supporting this fleet, this transportation, for the next 10 years. So what we're really doing by accepting the capital here and starting this is we are accepting that we're going to be adding $400,000 a year ongoing of operating costs. And to the point made about having seen how this is going to work over the next number of years, 5 years, we have 4 months of statistics, barely. it would be nice to have a year of statistics. It'd be nice to see what we can do to enhance the program. So the timing of this particular capital, even though we have a grant, while it'd be nice to start the program, I think unfortunately it would saddle our community and commit us over the next 5 years. And I think I would rather wait a couple of years before we do that.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Any further debate? Councillor Waxer?
I have a question for CAO Given through you, Mayor Ireland, to CAO Given. If I was to vote against this motion, would it be possible to ask that prior to spending any of this capital money that you would bring it back to council for approval rather than just moving forward?
Your worship, for Councillor Waxer, certainly if there's additional information that council would need along the way, or additional milestones that council would like to see with respect to, award of construction of facility, or the purchasing of buses, or the request for proposals for either of those, that certainly is something that council could direct administration to provide back. And along the way, you certainly do have the opportunity to decide not to move forward. I would suggest that at some stage, once we've awarded construction of a transit facility, garage space, that after that stage, you probably lose the opportunity to.
Hopefully, Mr. Given will, there, he reappeared.
There we go. So, your worship, my apologies. As I was saying, there does come a time where, we are committed to the projects, but that isn't necessarily now. If council wish to have additional information presented by administration prior to initiating construction or procurement of any of the items here, you could identify that and direct administration to provide whatever information you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Given. Anything further on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Waxer.
I feel reluctant to support this motion at this moment because I believe that the $5 million grant does give us obligates to spend 20 cents on the dollar for all the construction costs and the purchase of the buses. Currently, we're paying the full cost of renting space to store the buses and the cost of renting the bus from the operator. If we eventually owned our own facilities and owned our own buses, I believe the operating costs would be reduced. So I'm reluctant to throw that away at this point, but I can understand the concerns of the other three councillors. So I would prefer that we at this point just ask for more information prior to moving forward, but we keep it in the budget at this moment, since it will have no impact on the 2024 budget.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Anything further? Councillor Keller-Hempe, you wish to close debate?
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. It may not have an impact on the 2024 budget or the tax year, but it will have implication on the years forward on the taxpayer. And we have a contract with the current operator. We don't pay for where they store their buses. I think it's a $649,000 contract with a provider. And down the road, my understanding, we will still have a provider that will provide drivers to the municipality. So we'll still have a contract out there. I'm not saying that this is not a good project. What I'm saying is I don't think our town is ready for it. It's winter. We have no skiers here. It's a bad season. We live in that type of climate. Our business community have expressed to us that they do not wish for us to go forward with this project. And as I said, I just don't have enough information for me to support it at this time.
Thank you. That concludes debate. The motion was simply to remove the transit portion of the 2024-2028 capital budget. I will call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. Councillor Waxer, sounded like you might be prepared to make another motion.
I might need a minute.
I have a motion.
But I'll wait.
If you need me to, I would like to have a discussion on the funding for the Jasper Yellowhead Historical Society. I believe that council has made the motion to include $55,000 towards the upgrade of audiovisual equipment and $50,000 for planning and preparing for a space to exhibit their wildlife collection. And so my motion would be to I move to amend the 2024 proposed operating budget by reducing the contribution to the Jasper Yellowhead Historical Society by $25,000. Period. And the reason behind that is I think that the upgrade for the audiovisual equipment, I can support that for the meetings as we participate in the meetings there. But I think that there's an opportunity for that group to get funding elsewhere for the space over there. I believe that, you know, it is an attraction, not just for community members. I think the space is an attraction to the community. We've heard from other agencies that particularly one in Tourism Jasper is going to be focusing on more indoor activity. And I think we have contributed a lot of funds towards the museum and the historical society in the past, and we very rarely say no to them, and we're saying no to a lot of people today, including a position that, you know, I felt was really important to attract revenue to the community, and that got shot down today. So I think that on a priority based level, when we're looking at external asks, prioritizing something like this over enhancing service in the community doesn't seem like the right move to me. And I think that supporting a space, the planning and preparing for a space could be done with other money, but I'm willing to support half of that. So my motion is to reduce that contribution by half. Thank you.
Just one point of clarification. You just said by half. You earlier said by $25,000.
Sorry, the planning and preparing portion of the request, because the request is for two things, and for a total of $5,500 or $55,000. So my motion was to amend the 2024 proposed operating budget by reducing the contribution to the Jasper Yellowhead Historical Society by $25,000.
Thank you for that. Great. Councillor Melnick?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I would like to speak against the motion. We had the opportunity to talk about this particular ask at another meeting, and happy to indicate that this is additional funding that's required over and above the funding that they were asking. They've asked $5,000 more compared to their normal ask. And the reason is to be able to design and get to a point where they can actually go for additional grants, take additional monies, and actually build a building to be able to open the Wildlife Museum, to be able to generate additional revenues. In looking at this particular group, they have identified to us the costs involved in the detailed design and the building and pile layout. And they're doing moving forward with trying to make this happen as quickly as possible. The society supplied us financial statements indicating that with our grant, they'll still end up be in an operating net income of a negative $86,000. So they're taking a risk as a society to get this particular facility open. What we'd be doing is we'd be pushing them to approximately $115,000 loss in the year coming up. And just looking at what they do for revenue, we just saw a very successful Festival of Trees, which achieved 98% of its projected revenue, which is a great initiative, one of their fundraisers. And as was indicated last month, even in doing the amount of work that gets involved with bottle return, the facility or the historical society and museum, generate close to another $20,000 that way. There's a lot of volunteer time that's spent by the supporters of the museum supporting other events such as the various Grand Fondo races and the Pints and Pinots with support, where they generate money for contributions back to the museum. It's an active group, and hopefully they'll be able to create another tourist attraction for our area. And that's why I would be supporting the full funding of the $55,000. I'll speak to the audiovisual, which I appreciate Councillor Demota's support for. They use the audiovisual also to do presentations, which can be then rebroadcast in Zoom, and you can zoom into presentations that are being done at the museum. Their particular equipment right now is not the best, and sometimes reaches challenges, but it is something that's really appreciated by seniors and other people who are shut in, that when they can zoom in on different presentations. As well, they provide a service of going out to the various seniors facilities to do presentations within outside their walls, but within where people are that would appreciate hearing about the history of our community, and that's done on a regular basis by the society. So I appreciate Councillor Demota's motion, but unfortunately I do need to speak against it.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Any other debate? Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. This is a tough one because I absolutely value what the Historic Society does for the community, all the things Councillor Melnick has referenced. But it's a very tight budget, and we have to trim it. I might see if there's a consensus on the table to reduce it by a bit less, but
And again, you know, planning and preparing for a space to exhibit wildlife collection is awesome, but I wonder if other agencies could come on board to help with that. Referencing Tourism Jasper's stewardship plan, I forget what takeaway number it was, but you know, trying to build more indoor spaces for tourists, which I think this would be amazing, and it would be amazing for the museum to get this, and it would bring in additional revenue. I just don't know if we can afford it this year. Like we're really, this is a tight one, and we've cut a lot of things, including positions within our municipality. Yeah, I need to. This is a tough one.
Any other debate? Councillor DeBona?
Well, if I have the opportunity to close, if there's no more debate, I would like to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just so that people know that I'm coming from a place of harmony and peace. This isn't reflective of what the Historical Society does and contributes to the community. You know, I was making a pitch earlier about municipal position and our priorities. You know, I did watch last week's meeting, and I'm sorry for making you repeat yourself, Mr. Melnick or Councillor Melnick. You almost did it verbatim in the same order that you did. So I applaud you for that. And I understand all that, and I support all of those initiatives. But I think that, you know, for what this is doing, other agencies in the community should be helping out. And I'm really going to try to look at prioritizing what's good for the municipality first, and our services and people in the community, and a lot of the things that Councillor Melnick was talking about were nice things and brought good harmony to the community. And what I'm trying to do is I'm thinking about not being tone deaf to the business community that came forward to us and, you know, talked about how tight our budget is and all these other things. And I think that I would like to see some money and go towards attracting revenue through the municipality to provide enhanced services that the municipality can offer and bring people to the community as well. So to prioritize an external ask over a service that we can provide, to me, is in conflict of our strategic plan. So I'm still pretty firm on that $25,000 because I think that can be better used to enhance our service elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Debate is closed. The motion is to amend the operational budget by reducing the contribution to the Jasper Yellowhead Historical Society by the amount of $25,000. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. Deputy Mayor Hall.
I'm wondering if I can ask a question regarding the Historic Society. I don't know who would answer this, potentially Councillor Melnick, does Parks Canada contribute at all to our museum?
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. I will say that yes, Parks Canada does contribute a portion of money towards the museum in two ways. From my understanding, they contribute towards the archives, and they also contribute towards programming that's put on by the museum. And I believe in their budget, let's see if I can find that line in here. I believe that contracted services Parks Canada for $17,800.
If I could just respond as well.
Curious.
Councillor Melnick has it right, and he has, I think, the material before him. But it is primarily a contract for services, so they are paying to get something, whereas the municipality is simply supporting the operation overall. And I do note that although the human history is long, the municipal history is short. The park history is much, much longer, and the Wildlife Museum is all park animals, not town animals, and so further contribution, I think, would be warranted from Parks Canada, but that's where it's at. Councillor Waxer.
I had a motion, but I also wanted to suggest that we include that discussion at our next intergovernmental meeting. My motion is that we direct administration to return to a future council meeting for approval prior to awarding or procuring any transit capital projects.
Thank you for that motion. Councillor Waxer. Mr. Given, is that motion clear to you? Clear to administration?
Your worship, I will tell administration that we need to come forward to council before we award or construct anything. Certainly we can do that, and we can bring forward information on RFPs that we would issue in advance of issuing them, so council can see the scope, and then finally bring back information about the submissions that are received, so council can see what the actual prices are.
Thank you for that. Is there any debate on this motion? Councillor Demota?
Well, I want to commend the collaboration queen here, because I think in the spirit of some of the discussion that we have over there, I think that's a very insightful motion, and I can support that, and I will.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. Councillor Waxer, I will give you an opportunity to close if you wish.
I think the motion speaks for itself.
All right, I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. I have a request for a brief recess. I'm happy to grant that. We've been at it for a bit, so let us recess now until 3:20. All right, thank you all. I'll call us back into session. And are there any further motions to be made with respect to amendments to the 2024 operating or capital budgets? Councillor Waxer?
I have a motion, and Mayor Arlene would require you to recuse yourself.
Nice. All right, I can guess the subject matter, so I will indicate once again my conflict and relinquish the chair to Deputy Mayor Hall.
Ready? That's fast.
Councillor Waxer?
I guess I could start with the motion and speak to it. I would move that the municipality of Jasper be an uplift video sponsor by allocating $15,000 to the creation of a video about the Alex Kwong mural of Delasens. The reason I make this motion is we did reduce the amount as a wall sponsor, and I met with the organizers of the Uplift, and they have some amazing footage of the Delasens mural in the back alley in the back alley of downtown. And I believe that it's a very compelling story, and it's important that it be current. I believe that the video would be developed and shown at various film festivals, including, say, the Banff Mountain Film Festival and perhaps some other mountain film festivals. Thus raising the profile of Jasper in the mountain communities and the people who love mountains and who may be drawn to come to Jasper. My husband and I, over the years, have attended many of the Banff Mountain Film Festivals, and I don't recall ever seeing a video or a movie about Jasper specifically, and I think this could be a very compelling story and would be a really worthwhile venture, not only for the municipality, but for the business community, and thereby profiling Jasper in the most positive light.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Councillor Kelleher-MP.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hall. To Councillor Waxer. Has the Uplift group approached Travel Alberta? They do a lot of sponsorship of media and different marketing tools. And if this was seen as a marketing tool, would they not work with Tourism Jasper to work with Travel Alberta to help get sponsorship for a video?
I believe that they have worked with Tourism Jasper, and Tourism Jasper made a contribution toward a wall. But I don't know that they did a lot of profiling of the video sponsor option it was on our the submission they provided to us, but it was off to the side, and I admit that I didn't see it the first time. And I don't believe that they spoke to it at that point.
Councillor Demota.
I like where you're going, and I think the sentiment is great. I think that would be a great story. When we're looking again at how tight and challenged we have been with things, I still, this is another external contribution, and I am very grateful for what Uplift has brought to the community, and I'm grateful for what it continues to do in the spirit of supporting Councillor Melnick's initial motion to reduce the contribution. I think it was in the same spirit as me reducing the Historical Society ask, and in concert with those, I can't support this motion, so thank you.
Councillor Kelleher-MP.
So is this a second donation that we're asking, or are you asking to so you're asking that we keep the 10,000 that reduced and add this? I too can't support this. I think there's a revenue out there with Travel Alberta that Uplift should work with Tourism Jasper and Contact Travel Alberta. They do a lot of work with promotional videos, and they have funds for marketing. And I would suggest that Uplift work with Tourism Jasper to work with Travel Alberta to receive those funds.
Thank you, Councillor Kelleher-MP. My question, or I'm curious, would we then own the rights to, could we use this on our websites and our social media pages? Do you know this?
I believe that is in fact the case, and we would be credited at any showing.
Any other comments or questions to the motion?
that the municipality of Jasper be an uplift video sponsor by allocating $15,000 to the creation of a video about the Alex Kwong mural of Delisens.
Thank you for your motion. I wonder if just clearer could be to amend the budget to increase funding for the Uplift Festival by 15,000 to become a video sponsor. Would that be easier for Councillor Melnick?
I think, Deputy Mayor Hall, that it'd probably be clearer to keep it separate. But I also just wanted to reference their presentation to us with a video sponsor at $15,000. I think, did you ask a question about ownership? I think specifically in the presentation they gave to us, there was access to digital assets produced by Uplift, which wouldn't be ownership, and in my opinion. And I appreciate the work that Uplift has done. I think this could be a good avenue for them to gain additional exposure, but we may have opportunities through Travel Alberta and Tourism Jasper to access funds for exactly that purpose. I unfortunately still believe that with our sponsorship of 10,000 and gift in kind as required, as a co-wall sponsor, that we are supporting the festival at a point where it should be. So I will probably vote against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Any other comments, debate from council? I see no hands. I will call. Oh, do you want to close?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I guess my closing comments are that I greatly appreciate and value the contribution of the people who have worked on bringing the Uplift Festival to Jasper. And in my experience, in my career experience, I have often observed that sometimes it may not be the priority you're aiming for, but you have a window of opportunity to get something important done. And I believe at this point, we're lucky to have the two young men that are really enthusiastic and putting so much effort into this. And I don't think we can assume that we will always have the gift of their energy and enthusiasm, and that life changes and enthusiasm wanes if there's less momentum behind it. So for that reason, although I completely understand and feel strongly also about reducing the budget, I felt that now is that while there's momentum and while there's momentum and not while they're still willing to provide the service, I wanted to at least make the motion that we move forward on this.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Administration understands the motion. I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that motion is defeated. Councillor Waxer, in your conversations with the organizers, do you think a video sponsor is more important than a $10,000 wall sponsor?
I don't think I can comment on that.
Okay, thank you very much. We can call Mayor Island back in. I like you over here.
You can use the mayor would help.
You're next.
Oh, are you the next?
Are there any additional motions to amend the operating or capital budgets for 2024? Councillor Demota.
Yes, actually, again, it's going to take me a couple of steps to get there because I need to explain my process. So earlier we talked about a motion for the $147,000 of the over levy to go to the 2024 mill rate. That's fine. The motion said that it was a minimum $147,000, but that doesn't say that we have to add more if we do have a surplus in 2020 from 2023, correct? So a service would be, a surplus is still considered a partial over levy? Is that, or are they two different things? I just need clarification on that. Mr. Gibbons ready to read.
Go ahead, Mr. Gibbons.
Sorry, Your Worship, and I apologize to Director Malinchuk. I'm sure she is capable of handling this in the room, but I can't see her. So, Your Worship, for Councillor Demota, no, a surplus can come from a number of different areas. So it could be additional revenue above forecasted, expenses lower than forecasted. So a surplus is the sum of all of the municipality's operations and their net impact at the end of the year after we close off the books. The over levy is a small portion of that. And as discussed earlier, the 147,000 is from a number of prior years, the accumulation of a number of prior years. I don't know that we have any particularly large amount of over levy for 2023, but the surplus that's considered in the policy is really about that combination of savings, increased revenue, and that give us a financial result that was better than expected.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so where I was going with that was just the semantics, because a surplus in our policy says we shall, and we're not committed to that apparently, put a certain amount towards those designations, right? So I just want to make sure that surplus isn't considered an over levy because of that particular motion, and it's not saying that anything that comes in as a surplus from 2023 has to go towards the mill rate. Now it says a minimum of 147, but the maximum isn't there, but we don't have to put more to that if we don't want to. It just says a minimum because that's what we were told we would get. So I'm confident maybe that our surplus for 2023 might have a little bit of a higher contribution, and 40% of that is going to go into the stabilization reserve. So we had a discussion about a position, which we haven't voted on yet, that might enhance business through the municipality of attracting people. We talked about when people would be visiting here and housing and all that. Our arena that we just upgraded or are in the midst of upgrading has a sheet of ice that might not get used, that we can use a camp on, and on a shoulder season where hotel rooms aren't full. So we get a goalie camp, a hockey camp in here in the springtime prior to us filling. We can help those room occupancies out, and we can do that with a more focused intent by having somebody in that position. And I know I'm belaboring this, but what I would like to do with the confidence that we're going to put some money from a surplus into, and it's not guaranteed, but because money's coming into that stabilization reserve, what I would like to do is reconsider removing the position of the community recreation cultural programmer and funding from our stabilization reserve to the 2024 budget to support $60,000 towards that position. Because regardless of how far down the road we go, we're kicking the can on that position, and we're going to need it sooner or later, because our capacity for 3 people to be doing that might be reduced to 2 people. And then when those other positions start getting busier, it might be off of the side of one person's desk. And we heard from Director Reed already that we're missing out on opportunities within the community. And I would like, with all the enhancement that we're doing here, to make a motion in that spirit. So this isn't going to have a positive or negative impact on the percentage if we can do this. And through you, your worship, could you, again, Mr. Reed, Director Reed, Dr. Reed, do you feel that you could facilitate a full-time position with $60,000 coming from towards that this year, 2024?
Your worship, through to Councillor Demota, certainly we could, absolutely.
All right. So my motion is that council reconsider motion 578, that council direct administration to remove the program coordinator position, to consider, for council to consider funding that position from the, I want to get this right, from the stabilization reserve for the position of the community recreation and cultural programmer. Does that make sense?
I understand. Do other councillors need clarity?
So basically, this is going to have zero impact or very little impact on the net tax requisition for this year, because regardless of what happens, this position is going to come to us again next year, and I think we're just moving it down the road. My goal wasn't to get below 10%, and I don't think that is the healthy way to go and reduce a budget, is to just get into a single digit. It's been recommended and requested by other agencies in the community. It's a good target, but if we're going to be sacrificing, like we're talking about funding external agencies that apply to us that we're contributing to, and I think that through all the stuff that we discussed and supporting our staff in the community and in collaboration with that, we did have a lot of extra asks, and I don't think we've allowed many positions right now. And I think this is the smartest one from a business point of view to help assist in generating more events and programming through the municipality. So to clarify the mud a little bit, it's taking $60,000 from the rate stabilization fund to put towards that position for this year, so that we're not increasing the budget by any amount for 2024. Is that clear?
Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I have a question for Director Reed regarding ice and hockey camps. Do you anticipate, once the renovation is complete, the ice will stay in longer this year? Will it stay until July and come back in August, or do you know the plan?
Your worship, through to Deputy Mayor Hall, the current plan is to take the ice out when it's no longer needed. So that's not quite the end. Well, the answer is, if we were to have a whole bunch of needs, we would keep the ice in. If we had a camp that wanted to go in August and we could make it cost effective, we would make the ice in August. The new ice plant allows us that flexibility. The dressing rooms won't be ready, as we know, with the schedule. So we would we would have to do some work with Tourism Jasper about the box modular dressing rooms. Are they planned to stay? What would the cost implications be? So, but the short answer is we can make ice as long as the ice is needed, and we can start it up as soon as we have a need for it.
Thank you for that. I could support this position next year. I don't know if I can support it this year, only because there's a lot of questions about box modulars. I didn't actually even think about that. And I remember years past, pre-COVID, April, May, and June were full every weekend of Oil Kings camps, tournaments. I anticipate it might take a bit to get that going again. And is that what that's what we're talking about? That's what this position would generally work with. I just don't know if we would be quite ready this year.
Thank you, Councillor Demota.
I have some questions for clarity through you to Mr. Reed. What types of initiatives? I'm sorry. I'm trying to help the process, and I think I'm hindering it because I'm asking the wrong questions, and people seem to be getting hung up on single things. I was using hockey as an example. What would you need? What could transpire? Or when would you need somebody to get things going for the summertime? What kind of things could, if we hired somebody for February, because I can't see us hiring somebody in January right now or getting them on board. And the reason I'm going in this direction is if we hire somebody next February, then we're going to have to start from scratch. And the person that we hire today could be working on stuff for next year. So, you know, so that we can fill those spots in next April, May, and June, if we're not going to get it, the dressing rooms open now. But Mr. Reed, what types of things could we get going for spring and summer programming, fall, if that position's here?
Your worship, through the Councillor Demota. Yeah, so the arena is only one part of our offering. So, I mean, it's something as simple as weddings, conferences, trade shows. These are things that you need to put in some groundwork to get those items to come. Summer camps are, you know, we are very lucky that we've had the tennis. We've had a recurring external partner bring us soccer, you know, and volleyball, I think, last year. And so those items, they can either be enhanced, expanded, or other sports can be brought. But yeah, again, one of the challenges here is that nobody is dedicated to this work. So it's hard to describe exactly what's going to happen. We know that in the past, our summer camp offerings were more than they are today. We know that in the past, we had trade shows, conferences, and we don't have that capacity now. Or we haven't had those uses now. I think, you know, the stage is a good example of an asset we didn't used to have that is now getting more use, and could be capitalized on further. I think that's a pretty good example, or a pretty good summary of the range of things that could happen.
Councillor Waxer.
I have a question for Director Reed through you, Mayor Arlen, to Director Reed. I recall when we went on a council tour of the potentials for the recreation complex renovations, there was a real discussion around trying to bring the buildings together with the parks as one. And so I was a little bit disappointed when we talked about having a programmer for the activity center. And I wondered if there's potential, even if you talked about potential within fitness and aquatic center to, when on quiet days, to do some programming, if there's any ability to lean into that, particularly this year when the fitness and aquatic center isn't open.
Your worship,
Sorry, just the aquatic part.
Your worship, through to Councillor Waxer. Yes, certainly in the next couple of months, there is some extra capacity that we've already planned to capitalize on. That extra capacity wouldn't necessarily provide the kind of results that Councillor Demota is speaking of, or that I've referenced, because it's such a short-term impact. So a couple of months of this work, part-time, will certainly be useful, but it's not going to create any service increases in our community, it's not enough sort of hours and not enough long-term. And I do want to be clear, the Fitness and Aquatic Center, the work that gets done in what we would call the lighter times, like when the pool is not full and we don't need 3 guards on, then yes, the head lifeguard will go do some programming. That's all specifically to that facility. And to speak to your point about, unification of our services in what I'm still calling our community hub in my mind, that is happening. The cost savings reduced some of the connectivity of the facilities themselves. So we're not going to have, sort of one point of entry that allows a resident or a visitor to sort of see it as one facility. It's not going to work out that way, but we are, of course, going to do some very thoughtful wayfinding, given the new, facade that people will see. There will be some very clear wayfinding that does create that hub idea. And as far as, this position being an activity center programmer, that's just where they're going to be housed. They're not programming the activity center alone. I mentioned the stage as a good example. When we talk about sport camps or summer camps, very few of those actually occur in the activity center. So that's why it's not called activity center programmer. It's a community programmer. So I hope that answers those kind of questions.
Councillor Waxer and then Councillor Calgrampi.
Sorry, one further question. Do you anticipate that there'll be a significant requirement for programming supplies or budget that would be on top of the actual wage? That there may be, for instance, we talked about the the person responsible for Indigenous programming needing a program budget. So I'm just wondering if there would all be an additional cost for that.
Your worship, through the council, actually is a good question. And the short answer is no. We're not creating something like swimming lessons that has a program. That has what you call material costs. We are intending to use our existing facilities, fill those spaces full of activity, and use partners to deliver where appropriate. So no, we weren't intending to have another line item of expense here. This would be a way to maximize what we're already using, spending, and owning.
Councillor Calgrampi.
Thank you, Mayor. And I, like Councillor Hall, I could support this position next year. Adding positions, they're very hard to get rid of. I understand what you're saying, Councillor Demota, about, we have to support within, but by supporting our community groups, there is a lot of programming out in our community for the arts, for the history. The museum does camps for kids in summer. And I went through the walkthrough of our facility last week, and it was amazing. But if we're open by September, that will also be amazing. You know what I mean? I heard there that not everything is uncovered. We're in budget, but for me to support a position this year, I think would be wrong. Next year it'll be a different story, but our facilities are not ready. They're not open. Talk about bringing in outside, like for events, like trade shows. Our facility right now couldn't host a trade show. We can host a small wedding. I see this for 2025, but not for 2024. And I think it is important for us to support our groups from outside that come to us, because they are providing a lot of programming for our community and for the children in our community.
Councillor Demota.
Yeah, I'll close if no one else has anything else. I mirror everything that Councillor MP has said, and I agree. And I didn't want, and I hope it didn't come across any other way. I hear two councillors that would consider this position for next year. All I'm saying is that it's probably going to be a request for next year. So I am saying that if you want to start from scratch and then start getting things going, the momentum isn't going to be there. You're going to have to train the person. They're going to have to get ready and all this other stuff. So I'm saying, let's take some money now that isn't going to impact the budget. You're giving somebody a job and it's not going to impact the budget. It's going to come out of a reserve fund that has $1.7 million. I think our goal is 2.3 in there. We might be able to replace that. And I'm confident that a lot of that will go back towards that to replenish that. So the spirit of my motion is to get somebody in place now, take care of some of attracting some revenue that we can with the other spaces that we have in the community. And then that'll even leapfrog us even further. That person will be ready to go for 2025 when we'll be going full blast. They'll be settled in their position, know what they're doing, and they're not starting from scratch, learning the position as they're going along to attract business. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
I'm prepared to call the question, but I didn't record it. Did you write it?
I don't have it written down, so I was just going off of the motion. So the council reconsider motion number 578. And add the position of the I will write this down and make sure that Emma gets this properly. So that the council reconsider motion 578 and add $60,000 from the stabilization reserve to fund the position of the community recreation and cultural programmer for 2024.
Thank you for that. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. Are there any further motions to amend or adjust either the operating or capital budgets for 2024? If there are not, it would be appropriate that councillor make a motion that council approved the operating budget as amended, and or that council approved the capital budget. I don't think it was amended. There was a motion.
Escape park was moved to be unfunded. Was that?
Oh,
That's different. Or is
no,
that amended?
that change was made. I think we can talk about that. Mr. Given. The budget before us has been previously amended. What comes before us now as presented is amendments that have been voted on prior to today.
Your worship, the budget that's in front of you is reflected of all of the prior changes. So it is not the original budget. It is a budget that has been amended, but I don't believe you made any amendments today. There were no successful motions, so there are no amendments to the document that's in front of you. So council could have a motion to approve the operating capital budgets as presented, because there were no changes made to that document today.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I would make a motion that council approve the 2024 operating budget as presented, and that council approve the 2024 go through to 2028 capital budget as presented.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Wilson. Is there any debate? Councillor Demota?
Of course there is. What would it be like if I wasn't disturbing things? But I think that we have to support the budget. I appreciate all the work that's been done. I want to apologize to council for any extra stress I caused you by not supporting a meeting going longer. I really enjoyed watching you and going over the meeting, and I'm honored to work with all of you. So I just wanted to say that, and I'm grateful for what we get here. I am going to support the motion under a little bit of protest. I'm acquiescing on quite a few things, but we have to move forward, and I respect the democratic process that took place here. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. Is there any other debate? I will call the question. That is to approve the 2024-2026 operating budget as presented and the 2024-2028 capital budget as presented. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That was carried. Thank you, administration, for helping us through this long process. Much appreciated. That takes us to agenda item 6.2, the 2024 boards and committee appointments. Mr. Given, is there an administrative person that wishes to speak to that?
Your worship, I can speak to that item if you would like. The report is there for your consideration. As you'll see that there are a number of positions that the administration had advertised for. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm at the right place in my document. Sorry, Your Worship, just catching up. We had one application to the library board. This was an existing board member looking for, I believe, another term for January 1st, 2024 to conclude December 31st, 2026. And so that would be the first motion to recommend that Diane Tremblay be appointed to the Jasper Municipal Library Board for that term. The other item that we had advertised for was the Communities in Bloom Committee. Unfortunately, we didn't receive any submissions for people looking to serve on that committee. And so administration's recommendation to council is that we re-advertise to see if we can drum up some more interest in the Communities in Bloom Committee. And so that's why the recommendation there is to re-advertise, subject to receiving some names. Administration would come back at a future date to either recommend appointing those people who come forward for Communities in Bloom, or we would recommend, alternate approaches to council at that time. I believe that's all that there is on this item, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Given. If there are no questions for administration, but there may be, Councillor Demota?
No.
You're prepared to make a motion?
Yep.
Proceed.
The council will appoint Diane Tremblay to the Jasper Municipal Library Board for a term commencing January 1st, 2024, and concluding December 31st, 2026, and the council direct administration to re-advertise for the 3 Communities in Bloom positions.
Thank you for the motion. Is there any debate? I will call a question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 6.3.
Yes,
Councillor Latcher, go ahead.
sorry, I had my hand up earlier at the end of the budget. I wanted to make another motion regarding the budget. I apologize for not being more assertive. So it's not about, the budget is fine. It's an addition to it. The council direct administration to provide a report on the potential and implications of splitting the 2024 net tax increase on ratios other than 5:1 on a future committee of the whole prior to establishing the 2024 mill rate.
I thought that would have been too loud.
That's right. The motion is before us. Did you want to speak to the motion?
No, I think it speaks for itself.
Any debate?
I think it's a good motion.
I will support it. I think it would come in any event. Typically does, but the direction doesn't hurt. Great. I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Thank you, Councillor Latcher. Now I can return, I hope, to agenda item 6.3, behavior in municipal facilities policy. This came before committee of the whole at our last meeting, December 12th, I think, with a recommendation, and is before council now with a recommendation for approval. Are there any outstanding questions about the policy? I might only ask then, Mr. Given, have the administrative procedures been finalized? Perhaps we have. Director Reed, do you know the answer?
Your worship, through the council, in the absence of CEO Given, I can say that in the last week, I was unable to completely finish those drafts. So are they done at this moment? No. Will they be done before the policy is, in use? They will be. And we do have excellent notes from the comments that you made at the last meeting. So it's all in there. I was unable to complete it for today.
Thank you for that, Director Reed. Councillor DeMotor?
Are we better served with those administrative procedures in place? And would it be better if we just defer this to the next regular meeting?
That was sort of the intent of my question. If the procedures are not keeping pace, what happens? I mean, it seems to me that once council votes, the policy is in place. Are we positioned to implement the policy without the procedures also in place?
Your worship, for all of council, again, if CAO Given does return, I'm happy to have him jump in. However, as CAO Given spoke at the last meeting, the administrative procedures are approved by the CAO. And so he, that can be done later this afternoon after I get to finish them, or first thing in the morning. However, the administrative procedures as presented, should I be unable to complete, we would still move forward. We have the necessary backup for the policy to be supported. But as I say, it's going to get done and the CAO will approve it in a timely fashion so that we are able to move forward.
Thank you for that. Is there a councillor prepared to make a motion? Councillor Melnick?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would make the motion that council approve policy D109 behavior in municipal facilities as presented.
Thank you for that, Councillor Melnick. Is there any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 6.5. Fitness and Aquatic Center emergency boiler replacement. Mr. Gibbon has returned just in the nick of time. We have his report, and you addressed it somewhat earlier, Mr. Gibbon, but you can speak to the matter, please.
Yes, Your Worship, and I'll be supported by the directors in the room as well. So the recommendation today is that council receive this report for information on the replacement of the boilers at the Jasper Fitness and Aquatic Center for information. And the council approve the transfer of funding from the 2024 budget to the 2023 capital budget in the amount of $229,775 to be funded from the annual general restricted reserve. Your Worship, under our purchasing policy and the associated administrative procedures, that's policy B120, all purchases need to be contemplated in the budget and shown within the approved budget. There are some opportunities for variation where situations warrant it. There are two exceptions to that requirement. The first is that a expenditure not included in the approved operating budget or capital budget must be approved by council before the expenditure is made, unless the purchase is due to emergency. In the case of an emergency, the CAO is authorized to make expenditures that were not included in the approved operating or capital budgets to ensure continuous delivery of MOJ services. But in that case, the CAO is required to report the purchase authorization to council at the next available council meeting. So this is under that second scenario. As we went through the renovation project, we knew that our boilers were reaching end of life and were going to need to be replaced. That's why they're reflected in the 2024 capital budget as a project there. This year, as we brought on additional staff in our facilities department that had additional skills, we're able to do a better diagnosis of the existing boilers and found that they really are more than reaching the end of their life. We couldn't support them anymore in their current operational condition. And administration made the decision that the worst possible outcome would be to have the last remaining operational boiler fail just when the facility was undergoing the renovation or when it was reopening in the early new year. We saw an opportunity to procure boilers that would be appropriate for the facility and to replace them within the amount that we had planned in the 2024 budget. But obviously, because the 2024 budget was not approved, that presents this difficulty. So obviously the budget was approved, just a few minutes ago. But administration needed to take the decision of, do we go ahead and initiate this replacement of the boilers for the facility? I did make that decision. The procurement has happened. The boilers are on their way. And the replacement, including installation, is all within the amount that was reflected in the 2024 budget. So in essence, we're bringing this report to council so that you can acknowledge that purchase has happened as required by our policy, and that you can provide that acknowledgement that the funding for 2020 for the project is coming from the 2024 budget. And we're pulling that essentially into the 2023 budget.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gibbon. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Melnick?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Gibbon. Given the technology changes that occur, With the purchase of the two new boilers, are these high pressure boilers, or have they features that are significantly better than the boilers that they're replacing, or is it a one for one?
Your worship, for Councillor Melnick, I maybe will ask Director Reed to comment on that, but my belief is that they're essentially a one for one. We currently are in a 3 boiler setup. These supply not just heating for the pool, but also the domestic hot water in the facility. And so they are essentially a like for like replacement. But Director Reed, if I've got any of that incorrect, or if there's anything that you'd like to supplement that answer with, please do.
Thank you, CEO. Given your worship through to Councillor Melnick, that's correct. These are like replacements, which of course means we don't have to replumb and re-engineer and redevelop the whole plant. So this is a very cost-effective way to get the problem solved.
Any other questions for administration? Councillor Melnick?
No, thank you. And just as we're plumbing in these existing or new boilers, is there anything regarding the boilers where wear may have occurred because of the mineral content in the water? Is there anything that we can do to mitigate that as we're installing the boilers to extend the life of the new boilers?
Your worship, through to Councillor Melnick, we already do. We're already conditioning the water as appropriately for the boilers. Remembering that it's a closed loop system. These aren't boilers that heat fresh water. They are boilers that contain the heating fluid that goes to the heat exchangers, which then conditions or heats the water, whether it's for domestic or the pool or the heating of the spaces, including the fitness center.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, is there a councillor prepared to make a motion? Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, I would make a motion that council receive the report on the replacement of the boiler at the Jasper Fitness and Aquatic Center for information, and the council approve the transfer of funding from the 2024 budget to the 2023 capital budget in the amount of $229,775 to be funded from annual general restricted reserve.
Thank you for the motion. Is there any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us through new business. We are on agenda item 7, notices of motion, of which there are none. Agenda item 8, councillors' reports. Are there any reports from councillors? It looks like not. Upcoming events, Christmas Day dinner. We have an intergovernmental meeting January 16th. Councillor Waxer earlier today indicated one topic for discussion. Other councillors have notions what might be discussed. Please circulate those. Jasper in January, starting January 12th. And our strategic priorities review scheduled for February 29th, which next year is a leap year, I guess. Are there any other upcoming events that should be brought to the attention of council? Councillor Roxer.
I don't actually have the date, but I believe that the first community dinner of 2024 should be occurring very early in January. And I wonder if Director Reed would have the date for that. If not, perhaps we could just advise residents to be on the lookout for the advertisements on the very first community dinner of January of 2024.
As Director Reed searches for that, Deputy Mayor Hall and then Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I believe it's January 7th because I'm on another committee aside from council that is hosting that one.
Thank you for that. Councillor Melnick?
Thank you, Your Worship. It would appear we've dropped one of the upcoming events before it actually was completed. And I think last meeting, we had our friends from the Jasper Park Chamber of Commerce invite us to their NETMA Christmas event, which is tomorrow, December 20th, I believe, starting at 5 o'clock. 4 o'clock at the Robson House, and all councillors are invited, of course.
Thank you for that. Councillor Melnick? Director Reed?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can confirm it is absolutely January 7th. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hall. And I apologize for not being ready. It seems so strange to be talking about 2024 already, but here it comes. So January 7th at 5 p.m. is indeed the first community dinner of the 2024 year.
Thank you for that. And in return, I'll put Councillor Waxer on the spot. It seems to me that coldest night of the year is coming up sometime in February, and that is a date that I don't have, but you might.
February 24th. And while we're on the topic, I'm hoping that I can have the support this year for 2024 of council colleagues to be actively involved in the coldest night of the year events.
Thank you for that. If there are no further upcoming events, I would certainly entertain a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Hall, perhaps your last official duty as Deputy Mayor. A motion to adjourn at 4:20 p.m. All those in favor? There are none opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you all for those who were present in the room and those who watched on our YouTube channel. Thank you all. Enjoy the holiday season, and we will be back here in early January 2024 for our first meeting, I think on the 9th of January. So enjoy the holiday season, everyone. Thank you.